The transport shuddered into its docking cradle with a final metallic groan. The young human, Leo, unstrapped himself, his boots echoing on the grated floor as he shouldered his duffel. The orbital way station, a juncture for fringe traders and deep space scouts, hummed with a low alien energy. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and something faintly spicy. His new assignment was simple: supervise the transfer of botanical specimens from a Zarquil research vessel to a human science outpost. The Zarquil were a reclusive amphibious species, known for their formality and their aversion to unexpected contact. Leo's briefing had been explicit: maintain protocol, limit interaction, complete the exchange. The designated quarantine suite was a sterile gray box. A sanitizer unit stood in one corner, its indicator glowing a soft blue. Leo tossed his bag onto the narrow cot, and with a sigh of relief after the long haul, began peeling off his grimy flight suit. The station's standard-issue tunic and trousers lay folded on a shelf. He was just pulling the tunic over his head, bare from the waist up, when the main door hissed open. Two Zarquil stood frozen in the doorway. They were slender, their skin a smooth, opalescent gray, large dark eyes dominated by vertical, crystalline pupils. They wore form-fitting silver suits, and their delicate, four-fingered hands were raised in a gesture of pause. They were twins, identical in every visible way, their cranial frills identically patterned with subtle violet streaks. The briefing had mentioned the researchers were siblings. A human might have laughed, or apologized, or covered up. Leo simply stopped, the tunic half on, and met their gaze. The moment stretched. Protocol shattered in the silent room. They didn't mean to see him bare. It was clear from their arrested posture. But the alien twins didn't look away. Their eyes were not on his face. They were tracing the landscape of his skin. The old, pale scar from a childhood climbing accident that cut across his ribs. The darker moles scattered like constellations. The ripple of muscles that spoke of gravity 3 times stronger than their homeworlds. The fine hair on his forearms, a concept foreign to their sleek biology. They were studying him with the intense, uncensored curiosity of scientists presented with a novel specimen. Slowly, Leo finished pulling on his tunic. "The door," he said, his voice calm, "usually signals." The twin on the left gave a slight shudder, its frill flushing a deeper violet. The mechanism was flagged as cleared, it said, its voice a soft, watery chime. A system error. Our profound intrusion was not intended. We observed, the other twin stated simply, its eyes finally lifting to meet his. There was no embarrassment, only a banked, burning inquisitiveness. "Your integument is remarkably detailed." Leo fastened his tunic. "It's just skin. You have it too." "Not like that," the first twin said, almost whispering. The transfer of the botanical specimens, which began an hour later, was conducted with flawless, silent efficiency. The Zarquil moved with elegant precision, directing floating pallets of sealed flora cylinders. Yet Leo felt their attention like a physical pressure. Those large, dark eyes kept flicking back to him, not to his face, but to his hands as they secured cargo straps, to the line of his throat, to the way his clothes draped over his human form. During a pause, as a data slate was syncing, the twin who had spoken first, Leo had mentally labeled them, first and second for convenience, approached him. "Your scar," it chimed. "Its origin? Fell out of a tree. I was 9. A tree." The twin's frill rippled. "A large woody plant. You impacted a branch?" "The ground, actually." The twin blinked, a slow inward shudder of its nictitating membrane. "You struck the planetary surface from a significant height." "And you retained structural integrity?" "Broke a rib. Cracked my arm. Healed up fine." The Zarquil looked at its own slender limbs, then back at Leo's. The unspoken comparison hung in the air, Such an impact would have shattered its own light bones. Fascinating. It breathed. Second twin joined them, its gaze fixed on Leo's hands. You lack the protective suction pads. Your grip is purely tensile and friction-based. It reached out, then hesitated. May we confirm? Leo, against all protocol, extended his hand, palm up. The twin's touch was cool and dry. Its 4 fingers, tipped with small, soft nodules, traced the lines of his palm, the calluses on his fingers, the flexible joints. Its sibling watched, frills now both a steady, fascinated violet. You are a dense organism, Second concluded. A high-mass, high-durability entity. Your world. It must be a place of constant, vigorous conflict. Leo retrieved his hand. It's a place of constant, vigorous living. Gravity pulls harder. Things are rougher. We're built for it. The exchange was completed, but the twins did not depart. They requested, with surprising insistence, that Leo join them for a debriefing nutrient intake in their vessel's observation lounge. Their superior, a older Zarquil with a faded frill, seemed baffled but acquiesced. The lounge was a transparent blister on the side of their organic-looking ship. The stars blazed, cold and infinite. The food was a bland, nutrient-dense paste. The twins, however, were anything but bland. Their questions were relentless, delivered with that same jarring, innocent directness. They asked about skeletal density, about melanin production, about thermoregulation through perspiration. They were captivated by the concept of blushing, of goosebumps, of laughter. They had read human data files, but they had never seen. Leo was the data, made flesh. Your emotional display is not limited to frill coloration. First said, its head tilted. It is a full-body phenomenon. Micro-expressions, posture, heat signature. You read our data files on you, Leo countered. You knew what we look like. Second leaned forward. We knew statistics, diagrams. We did not know the texture, the reality. The scar is not in the file. The way your musculature moves under tension is not in the file. You are a living testament to a violent, beautiful world. The word beautiful hung in the air. It wasn't said with attraction, but with the awe of a geologist finding a perfect crystal. First's voice grew softer. Our people prize smoothness, uniformity. Flawlessness is the ideal. We are bred for calm waters and gentle currents. Your history, your biology, speaks of mountains climbed, of storms weathered, of survival etched into your very form. It gestured to its own flawless opalescent skin. We have no stories written on us. You are a story. Leo felt a strange swelling pride, not for himself, but for Earth, for humanity, for the stubborn, adaptable, scar-collecting thing that it was. We don't see them as flaws, he said. They're just records, proof of living. It is a strength, Second stated, as if realizing it for the first time. Your capacity to endure damage, to heal, and to carry the memory of that healing is a testament, not a weakness. It is a form of resilience we do not possess. The conversation shifted. They began to speak of their own world, of its silent, deep oceans, of their culture's fear, of the rough and the abrupt. They spoke with a yearning Leo hadn't anticipated. They saw in his bare, unremarkable human form a symbol of everything they were not, tough, resilient, unafraid of a little friction dot as the meal ended. First did something extraordinary. It reached to its own wrist and deactivated a small, shimmering field. A patch of its perfect skin became visible, and there, faint and silvery, was a thin, long scar. A sample collector malfunction, it said, its chime voice hushed. I was ashamed. I have hidden it since maturation. Second stared, and slowly deactivated its own wrist field, revealing a similar small mark. A pressure leak in a youth pod. Leo looked at their scars, then back at their earnest, waiting faces. He understood. In their eyes, his bare skin was not an exposure of vulnerability. It was a display of endurance, a banner of survival. He rolled up his sleeve, showing the fine network of lines on his elbow. Acid burn from a lab accident in training. He pointed to a faint nick on his chin. My first shave. He showed them the calluses on his palms. From holding on. The twins looked, and their frills settled into a calm, steady blue. A color the briefing had listed as denoting profound understanding, even reverence. When Leo finally returned to his quarters, the station seemed quieter. The transfer was over. He would leave in the morning. As he prepared to rest, he didn't bother with the dimmer. He changed under the full light, no longer thinking of the action as merely functional. Across the docking umbilical, in the Zarquil vessel, the twins reviewed their logs. The official report would be dry, technical. But in a private file, they compiled images not of Leo's face, but of the human form they had seen, a map of scars, the texture of skin, the evidence of a life lived in a demanding universe. They titled the file not with a species designation, but with a phrase they had crafted from their new understanding. It translated roughly to, the strength of visible history. They hadn't meant to see him bare. But having looked, they had seen something their own culture had taught them to fear and hide. They had seen a different kind of perfection, one forged in struggle and written on the skin. And they could not, would not, look away from the idea it represented. For in the human's unadorned state, they had glimpsed a story far more compelling than any of smooth, unbroken perfection. They had seen the story of survival, and it was beautiful.